So breaking the fraud cycle. Little bit about us. So Easy Solution today is represented in about 30 countries, and we currently serve over 460 customers. We are not a huge company, we are a human-sized company. We currently employ 350 persons, spread across Dubai, France, London, United States, South America, Tokyo, Japan, etc., etc. We do enjoy a few industry recognition, most and foremost Gartner. Everybody's heard about Gartner, I think. We also have some interesting recognition from Forrester recently, and we were also endorsed by the American Banker Association. So today we will see a few different elements. The first is a few key figures that I want to present to you, okay, about the fraud cycle and about one of the biggest threats which is currently encountered by financial institutions in big companies. Then we will look at a couple of fraud cases with a different approach. And then my favorite section, which I call the I told you so section, which is how those threats, those attacks, which were successful, could have been avoided easily. So first, a few numbers. They are pretty much self-explanatory. Okay, 70% of the credentials are collected within the first few hours of a phishing attack. And this is very, very important. Because when we are speaking of phishing, most of the phishing attacks are successful within a very, very short window, as you know. And when you look at the phishing problem, most responses that are currently leveraged by institutions are mitigation response. The problem is that a mitigation is not immediate. And most of the time, a mitigation would intervene once the attack has been already successfully leveraged. 2017 was devastating for phishing, and this is what we will speak about today. Phishing is currently the biggest threat which is faced by corporations. It is not the most exciting. It is not the most highly technical. This is not the threat where you will have to leverage the more technology. It is mainly a mix of very simple technological measures and social engineering. And as, well, the gentleman speaking just before me was saying, everything is in prevention. Everything is in uncovering the precursor to this kind of attack. So most attacks and data breaches start with some phishing attack. We all have in mind some very effective attacks which were all over the news, all over the medias recently. And when you look at the ways that those credentials used to leverage those kinds of attacks was obtained, most of the time it was through a phishing attack. So even if phishing is not very exciting from a technical point of view, it is extremely effective in obtaining some information that can then be leveraged against institutions. And as I was saying, phishing represents more than 80% of the online threat today. It is huge. If you can get rid, as an institution, of the phishing problem, then you have more time to concentrate on the 20% remaining. So phishing actually is not what you could think from a geographical point of view. Those are the top phished countries in the world. So you can see we go to Algeria, number 1, to Serbia, and last. And all of the phishing strategies follow the same fraud cycle. And this is the fraud cycle. So we have 3 main phases. The first one is what we call planning and targeting. This is where a team of phishers, a team of fraudsters, would create a phishing infrastructure. Phishing infrastructure has very basic needs, but those needs are basically always the same. You need to have a target, and you need to have a website, and you need to have the means to phish this target. So when you look from the fraud cycle point of view, planning and targeting is the first phase organized by fraudsters. The second phase would be setup and launch. Once the phishing infrastructure is ready, the launching is done, and in 90% of the cases, this is done directly through a web browsing session. We all know some phishing attacks. We all get some phishing attacks in our personal mail on a regular basis. And all of those phishing attacks, with virtually no exception, just ask you one thing. Click on this link. That's all. Just click on this link. And then we have a third phase, which is the cashing out. Once the attack itself, the setup and launch, has been successfully driven by the fraudsters, information has been obtained. Okay, so this information can be credit card numbers, or this information can be credentials, login password. And the fraudsters then would need to convert this information in cash, because the finality of phishing, in 99.9% of the cases, there also is obtaining cash, extracting cash either from bank accounts, either directly from financial institutions, or using the credentials in order to launch an attack, such as, for example, ransomware, and getting cash out of the institution. So why easy solution? Because in every single phases of this fraud cycle, we do provide an appropriate response. For the planning and targeting, we will provide two technologies, which are threat assessment technology, capable of detecting the precursor signs of a phishing attack. And we would deploy also a technology called DMARC, which allows you to secure and to block spoofing on your email channels. I will tell you a little bit more about this, as the presentation today in the two use cases will focus mainly on this first phase of the fraud cycle. Then, when we are speaking of browsing session, which is stage number 2, the setup and launch, we deploy technologies enabling securization of all the browser, of all the web channels between your clients, which are the target of the phishers, in your institution. And then when we are speaking of cashing out, we have two different sub-phases. One is securing authentication via a multi-factor, multi-channel authentication solution, and detecting also fraudulent transaction via a transactional analytics suite called DTA, which is our flagship product. About DTA and DID, I will be holding a workshop tomorrow. It will be, I think, at 12 o'clock or quarter 11. We will be looking at those transactional analytics in those authentication systems. So please join me. Bring your cell phone. We will be doing some biometric authentication with your cell phones. It will be quite enjoyable, I think. So let's speak about different fraud cases. Number one, BNP. So BNP is a French bank, which is quite well known. They have a presence here. And BNP is one of those banks who has the following philosophy. If I do not take care of it, the problem will just vanish on its own. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. It doesn't vanish. But this is what they truly believe. So this is why they are not doing anything about the phishing problem. They were not doing anything at this time when I recorded this attack. And I checked this morning, they still didn't do anything about it. So a few months ago, I started receiving mails. This is my French personal email. As you can guess with my wonderful accent, I'm French.
C'est très bien, monsieur.
Merci. Second email. So those emails are very, very simple. This one is a little bit more complex and a little bit more engineered. Let's look at some details on this email. And the first detail we can see is that the sender email address is bnpparibas.com. And this is a legitimate BNP bank sending domain for their emails. So this email, as far as I can tell, is coming from BNP Paribas. It is a legitimate email. And the second element is a link embedded inside the email. We have the URL here. Rule of thumbs. If inside the link there is the word Nigeria, do not click. Okay? Never. Except if you are Nigerian or you live in Nigeria. That's the two only exceptions. So why did those guys manage to send an email from BNP Paribas? Well, because Every time you send an email, as you all very well know, I'm sure, you use a protocol which is called SMTP. SMTP was first implemented in 1982. SMTP is over 30 years old. Okay. Can you think of an older protocol that you are still using older than SMTP? Let's have a game. Who can give me a protocol which is older than SMTP? There is an easy way to know. It's port numbers. Port numbers are attributed as the protocols in the RFCs defining those protocols come out. So can you think of a protocol older than SMTP? Sorry? FTP 2122? Yes? Sorry, 2021. 22 telnet. DNS? No, 53. 53. Older? Echo, port number 7. Ping. That's all. Those are the only protocols which are actually older than the SMTP. And SMTP was created in 1982 when the web was a fluffy little place full of pink and yellow rabbits. And everybody wanted the bettering of humanity. Internet is not exactly like that anymore, but it was at this time, because it was only used by either scientists who wanted to better the world, either military who wanted to destroy it, but that's another idea. And so there is no security embedded inside the SMTP protocol. So anybody can send an email from anybody. The from field is declarative, which means that those guys, going back to my use case, those guys actually leveraged a legitimate website, Create My Tattoo, and they started modifying the from field here and putting the domain of BNP Paribas. And then I started receiving emails from BNP Paribas. The reason they leveraged on another domain is because MTAs, Maggie, Microsoft, Google's, AOL, Yahoo, Maggie, are well aware of this problem. So they have algorithms which cause the reputation of sender. A fraudster, to avoid being trapped by those algorithms, would typically leverage the sending rights from another legitimate server and use this server in order to send his spoofed email. This would allow us better deliverability, because the guys have objectives, okay, and they want their emails to be delivered. So this is what happened. So the consequences were dear for this poor website tattoo design, who lost all credibility from an SMTP point of view and started having huge problems of deliverability. And then if I click on the link, this is where I go. This is the web page. This is the phishing web page. And here, as we can see, this web page looks pretty legitimate compared to the original one. Actually, it's a perfect replica of the BNP Paribas webpage. The only difference is that they took off the message saying, be careful of phishing websites. That's the only thing they did. Okay, the website is exactly the same. It was just re-engineered in order to send the login and password directly to them in order to corrupt and obtain credentials. This is known as a scraping attack. And the only difference is the URL. But if you notice, the scraped attack has BNP Paribas for the SSL, but the other one is also secure. So how did these guys do this? Well, actually what they did is that they just corrupted another website, which was a Turkish website. And this website was blocked after 48 hours. But if you remember, at the beginning, a phishing attack efficiency window is very, very short, and it's within the first few hours after the phishing attack is launched. So when this deceptive site ahead, this disclaimer came on, Firefox, Google, Microsoft, well, it was too late. But there was some other consequences, and those consequences were dear for the owner of this website. His account was suspended. So actually, by launching this attack, the fraudsters disrupted a legitimate website email sending reputation and also had a legitimate website took down. But those are collateral damage. Another fraud case which is interesting, Apple. One of them. There is so many fraud on Apple, you stop counting. I got this email that was forwarded to me by a friend. Okay, dear customer, we received some money for Mobile Legends, etc., etc. This time, it was not sent by the Apple domain. So this phishing attack was not as effective as the BNP one, because people could see that this was not coming from Apple. And the reason why they could not do it is because Apple has deployed a technology which is called DMARC, which forbids fraudsters from sending using their domain. And this is one of the technology we leverage in our solution. Inside this email, we had a very nice attachment. And inside this attachment, we had a little link saying, if you did not do this transaction, please click here. So the average consumer who will receive this attachment said, I never did this transaction, oh, I'll click there. And bang, you are taken directly to a fake My Apple site, which went down quite fast after. Okay, but still, the attack was still effective because the people's going there in the next few hours, the site wasn't blocked. And of course, they gave their sign-in password identity. Oops. My favorite part, I told you so. This kind of attack, those two fraud cases I just shown you, could have been very, very easily avoided. Deploying the DMARC technology would have allowed to prevent the delivery of this initial spoofed emails. Those emails would not have reached the receiver. They would have been deleted by the MTAs because the MTAs would have seen, using our DMARC Compass solution, that those emails were not genuine. And therefore, the BNP emails would have been deleted, rendering this attack totally ineffective. The simple fact of deploying this technology has an extremely deterrent effect on fraudsters, because fraudsters have objectives and they do not have any time to waste. I usually use a little analogy. If you go for a hike in the Lascaux Mountains with a group of friends, and suddenly a bear comes out of the forest and starts chasing you, you don't have to outrun the bear, anyway he's faster than you. You just have to outrun the slowest of your friends. Security is the same thing. You will never outrun fraudsters. There is too many. They need to win once. You need to win every day, multi-time a day. So there is no way you will outrun those guys because they have resources, they have time, they do not have any policy to implement, they do not have any reporting to put together. So those guys are free and they are extremely aggressive. What you have to do is make yourself unattractive. And a very effective way of making yourself unattractive, is deploying this technology. Because once this technology is deployed, it is fully advertised to the whole world. I deployed DMARC technology. And this is one of the first things a fraudster checking and working on his preparation and choosing his next target will check. Do those guys have a DMARC deployment, yes or no? You just need to do an LS lookup on the DMARC string, and you will see if the company has deployed DMARC or not. And if DMARC is deployed, they know that the spoofing attack will not work to start with. So they will just move to the next target most of the time. And we can see, I've deployed DMARC as a consultant. I do a lot of work on DMARC. And I've deployed DMARC for two big companies. One of them is BBC. Maybe you heard, it's a small radio station in UK. Never heard about it, Chris?
It's a little more than a radio station, but I will let that go, yeah.
So I've deployed this technology for BBC, which was facing a huge quantity of spoofing on their domains. And the spoofing went down in a huge proportion, okay? And they are only on the first stage of the DMARC deployment, and already they can see the results. Another company for who I deployed this technology is EMEA. EMEA is a company who built the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. They also built Dubai Opera, Dubai Mall. Basically, those guys built Dubai. Okay. And same thing, they were facing a huge quantity of domain spoofing. Everybody could send emails using their domains. And since they have deployed DMARC on multiple domains, they also are seeing a huge diminution in the spoofing activity. And this is why DMARC was initially created. DMARC was initially created by PayPal. Because in 2012, when DMARC was created, PayPal was facing the same problem. Everybody was spoofing PayPal emails in order to try and extract some PayPal account information from clients. There were so many PayPal fake emails that PayPal nearly went down because nobody was trusting them anymore. As soon as PayPal created and deployed the DMARC technology, PayPal recovered from this spoofing activity very, very fast. But not 100%. They never recovered the levels they had, proportionally, of course, to the rise of internet payments that they had at this time. Deploying threat landscape assessment technology would detect the initial scraping and phishing website creation in a matter of seconds. The second stage of this phishing attack was first creating a spoofed email and sending this email to the clients. And then it was attracting the clients to a web page. And attracting this client to the web page actually would present to the client a web page which is a perfect forgery of the initial web page. This is known as a scraping attack. Fraudsters work on an agenda, and they do not have any time to waste. Okay. A fraudster, when he creates his phishing infrastructure, will try to create a web page which is as close as possible as the original web page. So they will not rebuild the web page. A fraudster would typically launch what is known as a scraping attack, which means they will make a copy of the web page, open the web page locally, re-engineer the elements they are interested in, typically login, passwords, those kinds of things, and then they would re-host this web page in another place. Our technology would allow our clients immediate detection of this activity. Within a window of a few seconds, the scraping of the web page would have been detected, and the new hosting in a different location of this web page would have been detected also, allowing immediate takedown, because we work with most of the hosters, and we are very trusted in the takedown industry, which allows us to take down the pages very, very fast. So working with those two solutions together, added to our capacity of takedown services, as I said, would have allowed a very, very fast and very effective neutralization of those kinds of phishing attacks. Those attacks would have been rendered totally ineffective. So what is the point of this? Today, the customer experience is all about friction. Customers have multiple passwords. They have to access a lot of different websites. Usually they do not remember them, they just keep them in their favorites in the best of case. And they certainly do not remember the login and the password for every single website. They keep them in their browser autofill. And on a regular basis, they forget their website because they have minimum levels of complexity. Some websites are different from others, etc., etc. And they have to reinitiate their websites. This is extremely frustrating for clients. On the other hand, they also have to go through multiple hoops in order to prove who they are. And all this creates friction. And friction, when it comes to security, is highly detrimental to the corporations. Because if a client doesn't enjoy working with you, why is he going to do so? He's going only to do so when he doesn't have a choice. If he needs to transfer some money from A to B, he needs to get on his bank website, he knows that he will have to authenticate in one form or the other. He will understand it. But if he starts having some leakage, okay, on his login and password via multiple phishing attacks, for example, and the bank starts putting on other measures and other measures and other measures and start telling them careful because there is different phishing attacks ongoing. Please read those instructions. And we know very well that education for clients doesn't work. Education doesn't work. We've been trying to educate people against phishing since 10 years now, and still phishing works. Even Nigerian phishing is still working. You know, this prince who, we all got one, this prince who wants to share his millions with you, okay, just because you are a reputable person. So the point of threat landscape assessment, of detection of threat, of precursor signs of the threat, is detecting a threat before this threat is actually launched against your client. And the finality is, do not confuse fraudsters and customers. You need to facilitate the life of your clients, but you need to detect fraudsters in precursor phases before the attack is actually launched. So thank you very much. I think I'm a bit ahead of time, which is good. I always try to give you back a few minutes.
It just means we missed the distractions, that's all.
Yes, I was looking forward to it, actually.
Yes, well, there you go. That's the benefits of being efficient. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm Matthew Platten. And please join me in the workshop tomorrow. We will play a little bit with the authentication suites and the transactional detection suites. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.